come to the second part of the prophetic register of ChurchUnusual. And this was also a template that is helping us to understand the prophetic word we received on the 20th of December that activated our new season even as we enter into 2018. We already covered a number of aspects of the prophetic word, how to wage a good warfare from the prophetic word. And now as we begin to unfold, we looked at 6 things that came out of the book of Ruth chapter 3. And we look at the instructions that Naomi gave Ruth. There were 6 key issues that are strategic in how we receive the word as ChurchUnusual, in how God was going to help us unpack and unfold and move into the new dimension of things. The 6 things we looked at very quickly. The first one was to listen to the voice of Naomi, which had to do with listening to the voice. Please, if you missed it, get the first part. I'll just highlight them. The second thing was to wash yourself and what that meant. What does washing yourself mean? The third thing was to anoint yourself, which is very critical in shifting into the new dimension. The fourth thing was to change your garments. The fifth thing was get down on the floor. And get down on the floor was very interesting. It talked about humility. And humility means the first step to humility is I may not know. We've covered those comprehensively in the first part of our prophetic register. In this second part, I now begin to speak and explain the 6th thing that was spoken about. The 6th thing was shut your mouth. And shut your mouth stands for the place of prayer. It talks about how we have done a lot of work. We have planted a lot of seed. Now we need rain to come on our seed so that it can sprout. And the key issue would be that we've done a lot of work. We have worked, we have taught, we have laid out many things in 2017. Now it's time for those things to come into manifestation. And to come into manifestation is a place of prayer. So this season we'll be investing a lot in prayer because prayer unlocks the supernatural for us. Prayer causes all the things that we've been believing for, the things we've been expecting, the things that we have had faith for, and even beyond the things we have thought about. Prayer unlocks for us major things. Remember, we also discussed that we are a portal in the first part, which then means that we are a gateway, we are a place where God will activate new realities in this season. Amazing things are going to shift as we go into this new environment. Things are going to completely move away from the way we are used to things working to move into a new way of God doing things. So prayer is going to be very, very critical. And what are we praying about? We are praying about the prophetic word we've been receiving. We are praying about the truths we have had. In fact, if you take the first and second part of this, you're going to get your entire package on what you need to be praying about. How do you do that? You realize that prayer begins by us understanding that it is God's will and God's promises that we are dealing with. These are the things God has spoken to us. Therefore, we are praying them into being. We are bringing them into activation. We are speaking them into our lives. We are declaring them into the places where we are functioning. So that we can bring this. Prayer will accelerate these things. All these issues were raised for us, and they're going to be very critical in how we're able to move. Now, after sharing the 6 things, Pastor Ken now prophetically shifted to a new model in the context of the prophetic. He then began to speak prophetically using the model of 3 icons, 3 members of the community. It's a strategic way to speak prophetically directly now into the house. And these 3 icons will become keys for each one of us to connect into. In fact, this is what I would say to you at ChurchUnusual, that in reality, this is, if you've never received the prophetic word, or even if you have, this is a new template for you to say, this is a prophetic word to me that I am able to operate with. And therefore, he used symbolically 3 people to speak into the rest of the house. And I'll look at those 3 icons and those 3 patterns and unpack them for us now to understand the prophetic word that was being spoken into our environment. The first picture was the prophetic picture of a woman. In the picture of this woman is a woman who is afraid, who needs to overcome fear and restructure her life so that she can do more than she has done, who has been limiting the works of God in her life. It's also a picture of a woman who has a voice but has not yet fully pushed that voice out. A new grace is coming upon this woman. Great power that is not yet utilized but is resident is being activated. Great potential that is still within is being activated. And the declaration of a new day, she begins to speak and to function in a way that God has given her an advantage to begin to be noticed, to begin to be more defined, to be more clear, and to begin to see herself and not be limited anymore. This was a woman who had been limited by circumstances, and God will allow her to do greater things for His glory. And in a very simple term, you can personalize that, but at the same time, you know that the woman is a picture of a church. So Church Unusual, this can be a picture. And in fact, it is a picture of who we are. And it's speaking about we've been limited. We've not been pushing fully. We've been fearful. So as individuals and corporately, we need to start breaking out of limitation, going beyond what God has done. We will be more noticed this year. We'll be more visible. We'll have more clarity. Our voice will go out more powerfully, more clearly. And God will begin to do amazing things with who we are as a community and as individuals. We'll begin to speak and function at a much higher level, which means that we'll bring greater and greater insight. Remember we spoke of the portal? It also means that we will be downloading, activating, and speaking forth in a greater dimension. So that was one of the dimensions that was spoken about. The second was a picture also of a woman who will be surprised by the works of God. That means God will do exceedingly, abundantly, above what we can think or even ask. And the reality is this. It then means that as we put more time into prayer, we will need to, and the prophetic word to this woman was, switch off distractions. And the picture given was a phone. And a phone, is always a picture in our day-to-day of distractions. Phone calls, social media, news. A phone is no longer just a phone in our day. A phone really is the medium of all communication. We get most of our information, most of our news, most of our interactions. We communicate through the phone. So the picture is, it's time to be less distracted by the natural and be more focused on the supernatural. This is the picture behind these whole issues. And the other thing that was spoken to this picture of a second woman is that there would be certain structures that they would have to lay down. Same scenario. They would need to begin to handle issues differently. Remember we spoke earlier about 3 kinds of friends. Leaf friends, branch friends, and root friends. It's time to begin finding out who are the root friends, who are the people who will help build you up, who will nourish you, will get you to walk into the things of the kingdom. And which environments are distracting, which environments are shutting the voice of Naomi. And we by now know the voice of Naomi is the voice of the Father, God speaking into our lives. Which environments are doing that? What activities are we engaged in that are taking us away from this? It's time to ask yourself, whatever activity it is that you're used to doing, ask yourself, how does this connect me to the Father? How does this connect to me relationally? How does this empower me? How does this bring the prophetic word to pass? How does this create an environment for greatness in my life? How does this expose and make the prophetic word work? It's time to ask yourself, are you safe in every environment? It's time to check through your phone. Remember, one of the illustrations was given was to delete people from your phone book. Symbolically, it's not just from your phone book. Sometimes it's even from your life. And how do you choose who to delete and who to keep? How do you choose what not to be distracted with? You can only do that if you're looking at this prophetic word. Remember we read Timothy, where it says you must hold on by faith. Some have rejected and been shipwrecked. How do you reject a prophetic word? By spending time in environments and with people who disagree with the prophetic word you've received. And they will cause you, therefore, to lose that which God has given to you. So how do you choose? You choose by the people who are not taking you where God is going. You choose by the relationships that are distracting you. When you've had an encounter with somebody, ask yourself, was I empowered or disempowered? When you spend time with people, when you're done, ask, did I get closer to the things of God or farther away? These are the distractions that we need to deal with to protect the word we have received. You've heard me say this before, much like Mary and Elizabeth. When she received the word from God, she had to go and spend time with Elizabeth away from an environment that would cause her to lose the word that was inside of her. And that's the reality of how we will do that. And the more we do that, the more grace and favor would be released to this person. The picture was, the more you do that, suddenly, the more favor, people will come and sit and listen because you'll have upgraded to a new level. All new things will have to happen. It also means that we are shifting away from distracting activities. In this year, we will talk of Kuriakos very little because we are not better than, we are creating something better than. So if we are creating something, our job is not to criticize, to attack or to fight. Our job is to develop something so powerful, so attractive, that people will choose to join what we are doing. So the focus is we will not be distracted, we will move forward, we will press into what God has said to us, we will speak it, we will discuss it, we will change our language, we will focus on what God is saying to us. The third picture was the picture of a man. And you know, as I shared earlier, when you see the picture of a woman, it's always a picture generally of a church, a corporate entity, an individual, members of a community. But when you see the picture of a man, it's about sonship. It's about inheritance. It's about who your father is. This is how the pictures come. And this is about a man, a young man, who is carrying a lot of wisdom. And you can say this of Church Unusual. We are young. We are just within a year or so. We are about to celebrate 1 year. And therefore, we may be young, but we carry a lot of wisdom and the quality of a rich heritage. And God wants to elevate us even further. So in 2018, God is going to establish us in certain levels, and certain things will be shifted, allowing us to operate in a higher rank, especially in the spiritual realm. What does that mean? It means that a lot of gifts and abilities and inner abilities will be exposed that we're not even aware of. We'll see more supernatural activity among us. We'll see more gifts of the Spirit function among us. We'll see more grace given to us, more articulation, more clarity in spiritual things, because it's wisdom from heaven. These are the downloads we're going to be getting and walking into. So God is going to begin to release these gifts. And even as people give themselves more to the word and to the grace that is going on at Church Unusual, more and more activation will be seen in you, and more power and capacity. Remember, there was a discussion about us entering a royal priesthood with a focus on the kingly dimension, which I discussed earlier. That means that there will be more royalty, more functionality, more impact in our spheres. We shall rule and excel. Everybody will be expected to excel and to rule in your territory. You'll have to be clear about what that is. You'll have to be able to function on a higher level there. You have to excel in whatever you're doing. And remember, we are expanding. We are going to nations. We're doing a lot of things. So this is a year where you will have to really excel in your field. You'll have to be the best of the best in what you do. You will be a priest in your kingdom. You are a royal priest. That means you will be functioning as a priest in territories. Many of you will be resent again. You will be sent into areas of business, sent into areas that are different from what you have thought ministry to be. And that's not going to be a primary focus on a church meeting, but on impact in the kingdom. That's why we began talking about kingdom issues. Because it's time for us to rule. Kingdom issues are issues that have to do with kings and with rulership and with functionality. So people will be expanding in technology, in every field possible, sports, music. It doesn't matter where we are expanding. We will be functioning in rulership as we create new dimensions of those territories, as we create new patterns that people will come to, fulfilling the scripture that says that the mountain of the Lord's house will be chief among the mountains. This is where we are headed in this season. As he began to close, there was a very specific and strong prophetic decree over debt. It became very clear that God was going to supernaturally lift people out of the bondage of debt in 2018. Now, it's important for me to say something about this, that the reality around this means that if you remember the prophetic word, it was declared that by the end of December, debt will be completely removed. There was a decree on that. Now, this is how I want to explain how you enter a prophetic word. The prophetic word is true. By the end of December, which we are past now, debt as a ceiling was removed from Church Unusual. But like salvation or healing, it takes faith to step into that reality. There are many who will be watching this recording much later, maybe even 2 years from now. But if you press into that corporate environment and understand that in the corporate environment of Church Unusual, debt has been judged. Anyone who functions under that corporate environment, who functions under that anointing, who is part of that family by faith, is able to break free of debt in every realm. What does that mean? It means that we'll be able to function in always ahead of time, always have money for what is needed, always pay things up front, pay ahead of time. That is a supernatural environment. And if you remember, I shared earlier, briefly on this, that we have received the prophet's reward. And one of the rewards that came with Pastor Ken was freedom from debt, which came out of a decree, out of a word. He said that all he had was a word and everything shifted. Now he's brought that grace to us and released the same word, which has completely shifted our people out. Therefore, 2018 is a debt-free year, and it's a beginning of years of debt-freeness. It's a function at a higher dimension. Why? Because it is critical. The kingdom is a place of resources. To expand and achieve the things that God is going to download to us and speak to us, we have to be able to function as a resourceful community, functioning in prosperity, in generosity, and in wealth, because this is the key pattern of expanding things of the kingdom. So 2018 is going to be a clear-cut, new template, new function, new environment. If you listen to this one, I would pray that you keep taking it back. Take part 1, take part 2. Listen over and over. Draw from it. Put it in your spirit. Write it down. Meditate on it. Speak it. Pray it. Declare it. Decree it. Individually and corporately. Decree it over yourself. Decree it over the corporate community of Church Unusual. Decree it not only for those who are present, but even those who are going to join us in 2018. So that when they step into this environment, they walk into the fullness of this spiritual environment. It will shift their lives. In this year, we will see acceleration. We'll see things move in ways we've never seen them before. We'll see things function in ways that do not make sense. This is the year where formulas are not a function, where processes are not going to be the way we think. When God steps in supernaturally, He disrupts the natural order. And therefore, things are going to shift completely. We are going to function like we have been around for the last 10 years. We are going to operate like we've always been here. And we are going to be on the cutting edge of the things that God is doing, ushering and birthing a frequency of activation, acceleration in the entire environment we're involved in. This is a year of growth, a year of expansion, a year of restoration, a year of settlement. And remember, when we say a year, we're not talking about a calendar year. We're not talking about the whole of 2018. Some of the things I'm saying are going to be functional within the next few weeks. We're going to see time shifted. We're going to see things working differently. We're going to see people accomplish in a week things they would do in a month. A month, things that would be done in a year. A day, things that would have been done in a week. And in an hour, things that would have been done in a day. Why? Because we are shifting things. When kingdom time enters the earth, natural time bows to it and begins to shift. So we're going to begin to experience kingdom acceleration. Therefore, receive this blessing. Receive this one. Place it in your heart. Take it as the word of the Father. Do not be shut out by unbelief. Connect with it. Pray it. Prophesy it. Decree it. Speak it. Make it your language. And receive that which the Father has released to us in 2018. God bless and accelerate, break forth, and break through.